Hey guys, Will here. Welcome back to Modeling from the Engine's Chair. Now I'm going to say right off the bat, this is not another build video from my 1350, the original series Enterprise. Actually, what I wanted to do a quick video on is William Barton had posted a video over on the Star Trek Modelers group on Facebook, and the question was asked by Wayne Miller if somebody would do a video just on some basic lighting and some wiring and things like that. So I took up the challenge. I'm going to now first of all I should say that I'm not an expert in lighting. I haven't messed with a lot of control boards, but I don't want to go over that in this anyway. I just want to go over some very basic stuff for those that might be just getting into trying to do some lighting and things like that. I'm not going to get into lighting methods or control boards or any of that stuff, any of that complicated stuff. I just want to do some basic wire and LED different types of lighting that you can do. And you know, if there's interest there after this video, if I don't totally muck this up, then you know, I'll do a video on maybe some different techniques you can do as far as lighting different parts of your models. Now if you're like me, I got into models as a kid, but the reason why I've stuck with doing Star Trek models is because I really enjoy the challenge that's presented by lighting these things up. I think my real interest and passion for this comes from being able to do certain things with these models that you can't necessarily do to a lot of other models, or at least not as in depth as you can with these models. There's a lot of different lighting you can do on these models. There's a lot of little intricate parts. There's places where you can put lights that most people didn't even realize. Oh, I didn't realize they even lit up. And I think that's the fun of it with these models is just getting into them and building them, and ultimately, if you want to light them, figuring out how the best way is to light these models, and maybe trying to do something different that you haven't seen someone else to do. And to me, that's the most interesting part of these models. So without running my mouth too much, cheers, Mr. Barton. A little sip of coffee. So what I want to start off talking about is, before I even get into like doing your own lighting, I just want to talk about, there are some basic kits out there, that you can do some really nice lighting that are described as plug and play. Now if you've watched my 1350, the original series Enterprise, which I'm working on now, it's not necessarily 100% plug and play, but the possibility is there to do some decent lighting and not have to put a whole lot of work, not having to figure out a whole lot of things as far as where to place the lights, resistor levels, things like that. So with that being said, there is this is the kit for the original series, and it's dusty, sorry, but they're actually reworking this kit, and I think it's supposed to come out later this year, maybe in the summer, hopefully. And they're reworking it, and I'm hoping when it comes out I can get a hold of one and do a review on it, and maybe even do another build with that lighting kit. But it's been a pretty good lighting kit. It's really simple. All your lights are there. There's clear instructions for where they go, how to plug them in. Very basic lighting. So, but it does light it up really nice. And Polar Lights has kind of been pretty good about, they just came out with the 1000 Disco Prize, as everybody's calling it. And this is the lighting kit for that. And again, I haven't opened it up yet, but I'm sure it's probably along the same lines as the one that I just showed you that I'm working on with the 1350. So, but you can get these lighting kits, and they do a very nice job of lighting these models up, and you don't have to do a whole lot of work with them. Now, the next step up from that, from the basic kits, is antenna controls. Now, let me say right off the bat, there are a number of people and websites and suppliers that put out lighting kits, and please, you guys that have used other lighting kits, please post your comments below. Let everybody know, what kind of success or not lack of success you've had with some of the other lighting kits from some of the other suppliers. Now, I pretty much have used antenna controls boards and lighting kits, and I found them to be very, very nice kits. They can get pricey on some of these, but the price point on that 1350 original series Enterprise kit that I'm seeing right now is like $200. So actually, they'll be very competitive with that kit, because I think currently the antenna controls kit is 160-ish. I don't recall. I think there's different levels in that, but At any rate, without getting too much into that, these kits, they come with everything you need. They come with all your lights, and I haven't even opened this yet, so let's open it up and take a look at it. But one of the things that will cause people to shy away from these kits that are just getting into lighting is this piece of paper right here, which is, and this is for my USS Franklin, my 1350 USS Franklin, which I haven't built yet. But looking at this wiring schematic kind of scares some people away. It's not that bad. It's not as bad as it looks. When I first built this, used this for, well, right now I'm currently doing my smoothie build. I haven't finished it yet. It's currently on hiatus because I've been working on my 1350 and I just need a little bit of a break. But this wiring schematic, when people look at this, if you're not used to looking at it, it'll scare some people away, but it's not that bad. You can figure it out, and if you're part of a group like Star Trek Modelers group on Facebook, you can ask questions, and people will help you get through it like they did with me on my kit. I've had a couple questions on it, but it comes with everything you need to light it up. Now there is soldering involved with this as well, so again, that may be something that people don't want to get into, but it includes everything. It includes your shrink tubing, your wiring, your LED strip lights, your resistors, so there's no guessing as to what resistor value you need. And then, of course, it also comes with your control board, and this one comes with a wireless remote as well, which is really cool. But so I mean, it's just an option for those of you just getting into doing lighting and more wires. And maybe you're not comfortable with trying to do your own lighting setup, and you want to maybe look at one of these lighting kits. Like I said, I typically use Tenda controls, but there are other providers out there, and like I said, please, if anybody's used them, post it in the comments below and let people know, hey, these are pretty good kits too. So that way, everybody just getting into this kind of sees, what's out there. So, but with that being said, if the lighting kits can be kind of expensive, they're pricey. So if you don't want to go that route, the cheaper alternative or less expensive alternative is typically to make your own lighting. And there's a couple of options, and these by far these are not the only options. These are just basic, very basic lighting options. So probably one of the easiest things to do for lighting a model is LED strip tape. And a couple of options for these. Typically these come in either cool white, warm white, or a neutral white or bright white, depending on how the maker labels it. So, and it's really preference as to which one you use. A lot of people will use warm white for interior lights and then the bright white for exterior. I tend to try to stick with neutral, although I do have some warm white lights and some of the cool white lights as well, but just so I have them in case I decide I get into a situation where I need to light something and I just don't like the way the neutral's turning out. But my 10 years ago now, I built my first 350 refit, and I did it all just with LED strip tape. Now you can do it all with LED strip tape and it'll look really nice. I was proud of the way that turned out, but of course the drawback there is without a control board or that, you're not getting the blinking lights or the strobes or anything like that. So if you want to just do basic, light up the on the refit, for example, light up the deflector, light up the warp nacelles, do the interior lights, and you're not necessarily worried about having the blinky flashy lights, this is a good route to go, because you can stick this in the nacelles, in the hulls, behind the deflector dish, and this will light up everything nicely. Of course, you got to do your light blocking that, but I'm not going to get into that because then that gets into some of the techniques for lighting, which, like I said, I'll do another video on that if anybody's interested. Let me know. But another option with these is typically you may hear the term single and double density. So, for example, if you look at this this strip right here, this is actually single density, meaning you've got one LED for every inch or two. Double density, on the other hand, you can see the difference here. The bottom one is double density, and you can see that there's plenty more LED diodes there than there is in the single density. So that's the difference between your single and your double density. I tend to use single density because it's cheaper. Your double density is going to be a little more expensive. I'll use single density for interior lighting and things like that, things where I don't have to worry about hot spots. But if you're going to, for example, if you're going to light your nacelles and you're going to use LED strip tape, I tend to use the double density because you have less of an issue with hot spots, you know, through your warp grill, your chiller grills there. So I'll use the double density for that. But like I said, this stuff, the double density tends to be a bit more expensive. I try to stick with single density unless I'm doing something like that where I'm having an issue with getting you know, decent light dispersion and not having a whole lot of hot spots. So, you know, the drawback to this is you do have to solder this. You do have to do your own soldering with these light strips. They are all, well, they're not all. You can get them in different voltages. This one, typically you get these in 12 volt. They will run at 9 volt, so don't let that confuse you. You don't need to go out and find something specifically for 9 volt. Typically your 12 volt light strips will also work on a 9 volt. They may not light as bright as they won't light as bright as they would on a 12 volt. But I haven't really had an issue where I noticed that there was that big of a difference. Depending on, you know, as long as you use enough of these to light the area that you're trying to light, you shouldn't have a problem. But you do have to solder these. You can get different sizes of these too. You know, this one's a little bit wider. These are both about the same width. I don't have any of my strips from, I used all my strips for the original series build, so I don't have any, but they're a little bit narrower. And then you can get these too, which are kind of like a combination of LED strips and SMDs. But these are very, very small strips here, and these may in fact be SMD strips. So I don't know what you would call these. I ordered these off of HDA Model Works some time ago. It says LED strips, but it's almost like mini SMDs in a strip, and you can fit these in very, very tight spaces. Now these come in a predetermined length, so unlike with these strips where you can kind of cut them down, where you've got these breaks in them, you can cut right there and the LED strip will still work. These here you pretty much, I don't know if you can cut these anywhere. I haven't even used these yet. I bought these just to have them in case I needed them. But they're pre-wired, and the one thing with these is you do have to put a resistor on these, whereas with these LED strips like these already have the resistor values in them, so you don't have to worry about putting resistors on these LED strips. But these ones here, I actually burned one out when I first got them because I wanted to try it out, and I didn't realize that you had to have a resistor on them. These lights here are they're very small, they're very bright, and I don't have a resistor up, otherwise I could plug a battery into it and show you. But it's another option. You got to make sure you put a resistor on these though. And speaking of resistors though, so let's talk about resistors for a second. A lot of people get in depth into, you know, oh, you have to look up the specific resistor value and you know, just trying to make this as simple as possible for everybody that's just getting into this. I will tell you this, if you are using, for example, individual LEDs, and you can get these real cheap. I think I got these off Amazon, but you'll notice that you know, I got the different colors, but nowhere in here does it tell you what the values are on these LEDs. I actually had to go look it up on a data sheet and find and write on the back of here what the resistor values are. But you don't really have to be too concerned about that, because typically what I'll do is, as long as I'm using at least a mid-range 400 resistor, like I've got here, this is a 470R, which is a 470 resistor. So as long as I'm using something that high, typically you're going to be good with any of these, and this is 3 and 5 millimeter LEDs. So typically you're going to be good with any of those LEDs. Now where it comes into, a lot of people like to look up the specific value, is you lose a little bit of the brightness, but so far from what I've been seeing in builds, a couple hundred ohms isn't really affecting these 3 or 5 millimeter LEDs enough to really worry about it. So if you're just getting into it, I would look at, and this is a pack, whole pack. I mean, these things are cheap. I think I paid a couple bucks for this box of resistors, and you see how many's in here. It's a lot of resistors. Now they're all different values, everything up to a couple thousand ohms. And I'll tell you something I didn't know when I first started doing this. If it says K on the end, I guess it says 1K, that is 1,000 ohms. So just to let you know, because I didn't know that when I started. I'm like, what the hell is the K? But so just to let you know, if you buy resistors, a K is 1,000. So 64K is 64,000. So just keep that in mind. But with the 3 and 5 millimeter LEDs, as long as you're using like a 470, and different manufacturers will have different resistance values, but this one here is a 470, and then the next one up from that is a 510. And you can see I've actually been using quite a few of these 820Rs, 820 resistors, because it really doesn't affect the brightness of these LEDs that much. Being that lit. Now once you start getting much above 800, I really haven't tested them out for that, as to when you actually start getting a noticeable difference in them. Maybe somebody can chime in and say, at what point you will. But don't worry yourself about going and finding the voltage values and looking it up on a calculator online and trying to figure out the exact resistor value, because it's not going to lose that much brightness just for 200 or 300 ohms. So so that's the way I've been doing it, and like I said, it's worked for me. I haven't worried too much about it. Where I do get into trying to use maybe a higher level of resistance on these is when I want to dim the light down. And again, that's getting into kind of lighting techniques, but just real quick, for example, if you've seen the pictures of my Reliant build, when I did the SMDs, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, for the red lighting on the bridge, for the bridge lights on the outside, I actually ended up using, I want to say it was really high, it was like a 54,000 ohm resistor to dim those down to where they weren't overly bright. And you can play around with them. I mean, the way I got to that was I would solder on a resistor, see if how the brightness was, and I actually started, I think, at like 4,000 ohm resistor, and it was way too bright. And I would just step it up from there until I got to, the ohm resistor that I thought would make that just, just the right amount of light. So, that's the only time I really worry about playing around with the different ohm resistors. Other than that, typically I'm using somewhere between a 6 to 800 or 900 ohm resistor on my 3 or 5 millimeter LEDs. And I haven't noticed any issues or differences or major differences in the brightness. I'm sure you're losing a little bit. But it hasn't been enough to really bother me. So that's that. And then I just mentioned about SMDs. Now, SMDs are really cool because, and please make sure you can get these without being pre-wired. I would highly recommend you get these pre-wired. And again, I believe I got these from HDA Model Works. But, and they come in a pack, and you get, I think, 10 of them to a pack or something like that. And I've got them in red, blue, and white. And you can just see, hopefully that's in focus, my viewfinder has died on me again, so I gotta get a new camera. But you can see how small that is, so you can really fit that into a really tight spot. For example, I use this on my my Reliant build. I use this in the pylons to light the emblem on the pylons. So again, with this, you've got to put a resistor on it, and usually with these SMDs, I usually put about a I don't know. Usually when I use these, I use at least 1,000 watt resistor or 1,000 ohm resistor, and that'll make, these will last a really long time if you underpower them. If you overpower something, they'll burn out quicker. If you underpower it, it'll last longer. You may lose a little bit of the light, but I'd rather have something last a long time than not use a high enough resistor value and have the thing burn out, after I put the model together, a month into the, after I've had the thing together. So somebody told me that one time, and that's pretty much what I've been going by. When in doubt, I use a higher resistor value. So even when I was looking up the specific resistor values, I was still using a higher resistor value than what it called for, just because Like I just said, it's it's better to use a higher resistor and maybe lose a little bit of that light and have that light, the LED or the SMD, last a little bit longer versus overpowering it. So SMDs, like I said, you can get these in a bunch of different colors. I've got them in white, red, and blue, and because those are basic colors that you use on these ships. And other than that, as far as wiring these things up, there's two different kinds of wire I typically use, although I've been contemplating using something else that Boyd mentioned on TruckWorks that I've got to look into yet. But I use this wire. It's I think it's a 24 gauge. It may be a little heavier than what you need for most applications, but I use it on the larger 1/350 scale, the 1/537. I use it on and I regret using it. Just because it's a little bit too bulky for 1/537 scale models, so I definitely wouldn't use this on a 1/1000 or 1500, anything getting smaller than 1/537. But you can get this, and this is almost the same gauge as what comes with the Polar Lights kit. This might be more like a 26 or 28 gauge, but it's pretty close. So you can get wire like this, and you can get it in different gauges. Remember, the higher the value, the smaller the wire. I think, yeah. So a 24, this is a 24 gauge, a 26 gauge, or 28 gauge, whatever the next value is available, would be a little bit smaller than this. With the voltages you're working on this, I mean, people typically power these at 12 or 9 volts. You don't have to worry about having a very high gauge wire for that type of voltage. So 24 I found has been pretty sufficient for everything as far as the 1/350. I've added a couple lights to it. But there's that, and then what I really like using is magnet wire. And the reason why I like using this is because it's very small. I can get it into small spaces, like on my 1/537. I reinforced the pylons with a copper tube, and fortunately, because this wire is so thin, I could run this down the copper tube and not have to worry about running it outside the copper tube and maybe gouging out some more plastic to make this fit down the pylon. So it's really good for fitting in the tight spaces. The only thing I don't like about it is it can be a little bit of a hassle to get solder to take to it, at least in my experience, and I'm not very good solder. Very good at soldering stuff still. Still kind of working on my technique for that, but it can be a pain in the butt sometimes to get this to take solder and hold a connection, but it's very useful. I've got it in copper, which is my ground, and red, which would be my hot wire. So that way when I run these wires, I can keep track of which one is the negative, which one's positive. And this is a 28 gauge wire, so you can see this is a lot thinner than say that wire is. But they've got this all the way from 16 gauge all the way up to 42 gauge, which is pretty small. So I went with this because it's kind of a medium. It's kind of a middle of the road as far as magnet wire. And I really haven't found the space that I can't get this stuff into. So I really don't see a need to go smaller than that. You can get these, magnet wire, you can get it from a lot of different suppliers. Just like your LEDs and your resistors and everything, all this stuff you can get from different suppliers. Now my my strip LEDs, you can get them from HDM Model Works. They sell stuff there, but I get mine from LED Supply, and because I can get them in different footages in the roll, and it's just, that's who I've been using before I even discovered HDM Model Works. So that's who I've been getting my LED strips from. But I can post down the bottom to this video what I use as far as from LED Supply. But so that's pretty much some basic stuff to go over. I thought there was something else I wanted to discuss, but I don't see anything else on my desk here. So anyway, like I said, that's just some basic stuff. Oh, so real quick, let's talk about some tools. What do I use? So obviously solder. Gotta have some solder. Got a decent pair of wire strippers to strip the wires with. Now the magnet wire, you don't really strip this stuff. This stuff here, basically, you hang on, what did I do with my lighter? basically, the easiest way to do this stuff, just take a lighter and just hold it to the tip till you see it. You just start seeing the copper appear. That's the easiest way to work that, or you can do it on the soldering iron itself. Either way, same result. But so obviously solder, I just use this stuff here. I just get from Walmart, from the automotive section. Haven't had any problems with it working, and that's what I use there. And the wire strippers. And as far as a soldering iron, now, you know, some people have some complicated setups where they can adjust the setting for the, you know, how hot the iron gets and all that. I've just got this basic setup. It's just it's a Ryobi, and it's battery powered, and I think it cost me 30 or 35 bucks maybe. Now I got this because it being battery powered, it's portable. I can use it wherever. So if I'm working on something in the garage with my model and I don't want to bring it back in here to solder, I can just take my solder out there and do it. So you know, it's a very basic setup, but it's worked for me, and that's what I've been using. And so, you know, other than that, I don't. The only other thing I can really say I use a lot, as far as and right now it's holding my buster collectors. So helping hands. If you're going to do soldering, it's really helpful to have one of these, because you've got these to hold your wires in place, or whatever your wire, you know, if you're doing an LED and you're soldering the wire to the LED, one hand to hold the LED, the other one to hold the wire steady for you, and all you got to do is, you know, put your hot iron to it and you solder it up. So this is invaluable, and they're really cheap. You can get these from Harbor Freight. I think they're a couple bucks. They're not a lot. So I mean, you know, that's really, I found that's really all I've needed to do you know, a decent soldering job. Like I said, people have different setups. They have stuff more complicated. I want to keep this basic. And as far as basic tools go, that's really all you need. You know, a solder, a decent pair of wire strippers, and a soldering iron. And I recommend having a pair of those helping hands, because it really makes it a lot easier. But other than that, if you got any questions, please feel free to ask. Hit me up below, or send me a PM if you rather go that route. Hopefully some of the other guys will chime in here and kind of, you know, give some information as far as, you know, what they use. Try to keep it basic, guys. Don't get too in depth. You know, I don't really want to get into the boards on this video. You know, maybe we'll talk about those on another one if anybody's interested in me doing something with those a little more in depth. I don't have a lot of experience with the boards, but I'm sure somebody out there can do a video on the well, however you pronounce it, on the board. So anyway, again, guys, this is a short video. Just want to keep it very basic. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know below if there's anything I missed, or if I misrepresented anything. Obviously, you know, call me out on it. But anyway, guys, appreciate you for watching. Until next time, keep modeling.